This is my 1967 Oldsmobile Toronado, and in this video I'm going to give you a little bit of history and convince you why the Toronado is the coolest vehicle you never cared about. And in the end, I'm going to tell you how you can own it. I bought this car out of the fleet of MotorTrend television, and the truth is I was going to flip it, but man, I'm falling in love with the thing. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to sell it anyway, and at the end of the show, I'm gonna tell you how you could own it. The other things I'm gonna talk about are the history of Toronados and the racing, and we'll get into the mechanical part of it, and then I'm gonna clean up this car and show you sort of the details of this particular one. Of course, the punchline for hot rodders about the Oldsmobile Toronado is that it is front-wheel drive. Now, of course, in the United States, there was front-wheel drive stuff to the dawn of vehicles, but the one that people remember a lot is the Cord, and that ended in about 1937, and there really wasn't a front-wheel drive until the Toronado came out as far as a major production car. GM got interested in front drive and alternative drivetrains as early as the 1955 concept van called L'Universal. At least I think that's how it was pronounced. In 1958, the project was given to the Oldsmobile Advanced Design Group under a guy named Jack Wolfram. And then this guy, Harold Metzel, with that amazing Oldsmobile Actionland display. And then this guy, John Beltz, who was a super interesting dude. He is seen as the driving force behind the creation of the 442 muscle car in 1964, and he became the general manager of Oldsmobile in 1969. The same year, he was seen in Hot Rod magazine with unique Oldsmobile performance engines that, of course, never came to be. In another famous moment of PR in 1971, Car and Driver asked Beltz why Oldsmobile made the Toronado, and he said, "It just makes you feel like God." Back to the Toronado. It really came from two teams inside General Motors. On one hand, you had some guys working on breakout styling under design chief Bill Mitchell, and they created such things as this Cadillac V16 concept. This is from 1963, and it had wheel openings that looked a lot like the Toronado. That's probably because it was influenced by this design by a guy named David North, who came up with the profile that would ultimately become the clay model. And here's the modeling studio in 1963 or 64 probably, where they are already designing half of a 1966 Buick Riviera and half a 1966 Olds Toronado on the same hunk of clay. Now let's talk about the engineering team under John Beltz. These guys were charged with breaking new ground on an ultimate GM passenger car, and they came up with a front drive setup called the Unitized Power Package, or UPP. It was an Oldsmobile 425 V8 mounted longitudinally over a transaxle that was based on the Turbo 400 automatic transmission. It was called a TH425, the transaxle was. The powertrain would ultimately be adapted to the E-body chassis that was released under the 1963 Buick Riviera. So Buick had a rear drive and Olds had a front drive on basically the same frame. But where did the Toronado name come from? The Olds design project was called XP784 inside General Motors, but then it borrowed its final name from a 1963 Chevy show car called Toronado, combining Toro for bull and tornado for tornado. But nobody says Toronado like Sharknado. This car was a very early example of why rectangular headlights should never be installed in cars that were designed for round. Finally, the Oldsmobile Toronado was released to the public in 1966, and it was seen as an engineering marvel. The Toronado became the MotorTrend Car of the Year for 1966, and about 41,000 of them were sold. Also, throughout this design process of a two-door personal luxury car for Buick and Oldsmobile, it became clear that Cadillac needed one too, and Cadillac was compelled to make one, and that led to the 1967 Eldorado, which used the same unitized power package, but with a Cadillac V8. Perhaps the Eldorado is why Toronado sales fell to about 22,000 in 1967. The Toronado nameplate lasted until 1992, but to me, 66 and 7 is the only Toronado. And by 1971, seen here, it was a Luxo barge, and I personally lost interest in them. But then again, I'm not that dude in the ad. Check that guy out. To make the Toronado cool in 1967, there was the George Barris Custom Toronado 67X, and that was an Esso gasoline promotion. They had 4 of these things built to give away for Canada's centennial. Wow, stunning. A few of these still exist. In racing, John Smizer built a drag car, the Terrible Toronado, and you'll want to see Brian Loans' 3-part history on this car on his channel, which is called Brian Loans. He leaves nothing on the table, giving you the whole history of this car. Then, George Hurst of Hurst Shifter fame had bought a 66 Toronado, and he started looking at the drivetrain, and it led to some brainstorming, and the Hurst Harry Olds was born. It was a 442 with a Toronado drivetrain in both the front and the back. It was driven by Gentleman Joe Schubeck and was exactly as scary as it appears to be. But then came more racing at Pikes Peak, and this was the thing that really mattered for Toronado success. So that Pikes Peak history explains why this car looks the way it does. They did this on the Holden Brothers TV show. The interesting thing is this is a 1967 Toronado, and the livery here is like what was on Nick Sanborn's car in 1966. His 67 car actually looked a little bit different, but that's neither here or there. What's actually important is that Nick Sanborn won Pikes Peak in his class in 1966. 1967 was kind of a lose, but in 1968, Toronados won 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place. Another one won in 1970, and the very last Toronado was on Pikes Peak in 1973. Now, going into the story on this particular car, it was, once again, on that Holden Brothers TV show on MotorTrend, and the whole scheme of that show was that they buy old cars, and they sink no more than $25,000 into them, and make them super cool. This they bought, and man, it looked like a pretty good car on TV. It might have been way rougher than it looked on screen. Granted, that happens. But the first thing that they did is sent it out to the paint shop to have it painted for $12,900. As it turns out, this is actually a vinyl wrap. The whole car, it looks like they wrapped it white and then separately added the blue and the red. And all of the lettering here is also separate stickers. I think it looks really cool, but it is not paint. By the way, Money Oldsmobile was the dealership in Colorado Springs that sponsored these things. Now, the bummer about the vinyl wrap is this was a vinyl top car, which is in itself a bummer. And so it had a piece of trim right here and vinyl on it. I have no idea what is under the vinyl wrap. It looks fairly smooth up here. You see some sanding marks, but I'm guessing that it's primer. Probably some Bondo over the holes. I don't know. They didn't show that in the TV show, but that's probably pretty gruesome if you peel the vinyl off. Now, originally, this car was Burgundy Mist, which is sort of a purple eggplant kind of color. I really kind of like it. It seems perfect for 1967. So swank, so good. And the matching interior color in purple. Let's open the trunk. I'll show you something else they did. Well, in the back, this is kind of a bummer. There's a big crack in the vinyl right here, and you know it's because there's a big Bondo splotch right there, so that's a drag. Now, in the trunk, we've got the boat fuel tank. Now, on the show, they had the stock gas tank restored and installed it under here, but my wild guess is that they didn't take the time to actually plumb it, and they just ran the thing off the tank. Guilty. I've done this many times myself, and so that's what it's got for a fuel system. But if you look around in the trunk, this thing is really, really rust-free. And here, of course, is more of that delectable Burgundy Mist. Let me show you the tires. These are cool. This is pretty neat. They threw on some all-terrains to make it look more Pikes Peak-y. It is a BFG 235/75/15 on the stock wheels. The Toronado and the Eldorado had these factory wheels with a very strange offset to them to accommodate the front-wheel drive. So those are unique to the car. They just fogged those black and removed the hubcaps from them. That was a cool thing. You know I love off-road tires on passenger cars. Okay, this is kind of a mess. Oh, look. Factory hubcaps. I bet you there's a Toronado guy somewhere who wants those. And a bag of floor dry. Is that an omen? You know I'll use it. All right, this is just gonna be a lot of vacuuming and wiping. It's actually in pretty good shape, but I'm gonna make it better. Just wait. I just spent a while cleaning up the interior and it feels great. This thing is Mad Men. It is so good. I mean, how do you even get a car with a purple interior these days? All right, let's go through a few things that are fantastic. First of all, I have to give probably Holden Brothers credit for finding an air freshener that matches the interior. If only it were burgundy mist. That would be really good. First of all, as you sit at the wheel, you may adjust to whatever convenience you like best. Look at that tilt. And by the way, you know how the GM columns often get loose? This one's really good. But wait, there's more. Telescopic. Never mind that there's no human being on earth that would drive this car this way. It just comforts you to know that the option is there. And you've got your little rocket in the middle of the steering wheel to remind you that you're driving the Oldsmobile. I like the speedometer, which is a barrel that rolls against a fixed pointer. The whole instrument cluster situation is amazing. How did they even design that? It's so intricate. And on the instrument panel is the little thing that tells you about your oil change situation from a standard station in Winona, Minnesota. I think it says Winona. I think so. Nonetheless, Minnesota. So that's probably where this car is from. Boop. We'll just leave that there forever. Look at the wraparound dash. On the doors, there's handles to get in and out, not only in the front for the driver, but also in the back for the rear seat passengers. That was something I had on my 63 Riviera too. It was pretty good. You know, normally, if you were buying a Toronado in 1966 or 7, you would order the leather package. Whoever bought this one did not. They also did not opt for one of the least convenient features on any car, including modern day ones in my opinion, which is it had the Comfortron air conditioning where you would just set the temperature and it automatically does what you need to. No, that's wrong. Air conditioning, by the way, has a cold hot lever and a fan lever and a outlet, you know, what vent lever. That's it. That's all that they should have. And apparently whoever bought this Toronado brand new knew that. This is actually pretty nice. Oh, and last thing, check out the floor mat that is custom made just for the floor of the Toronado. I actually have a passenger side mat that is GM original as well. And the luxury that is unmatched in the Toronado, and because it's front wheel drive and has no transmission, no drive shaft, it has a completely flat floor. So you can drive in absolute luxury and convenience, unencumbered by a center tunnel. All right, I'm gonna have to pull this back out now and probably pressure wash my unitized power package. Lap of luxury. One more thing about the interior, look at this. Dueling ashtrays so that you can smoke twice as much. Let's see. Falling. And my unitized power package This is not a 455 Oldsmobile, it's a 425. They didn't have the 455 until 1970. And of course, it's on that 425 transmission, the TH425 or Turbo 425, which is a Turbo 400. And the weird thing about it is the torque converter's on the back of the engine, and then it's chain driven down to the transmission, and the transmission's in there sort of the wrong way and ends up driving the front tires. It's at the same time genius and a big pain in the neck. Technically, the transmission's really easy to rebuild because it's a Turbo 400, but getting it in and out of the car is a pain. I've tried it with an Eldorado, it's no fun. So they really were proud of the Toronado when they came out with it, so they put some performance in this thing. It's the highest performance 425. It is 385 horsepower. It's got 475 pound-feet of torque. Strangely, the intake manifold actually dips down. The carburetor is lower than the intake ports, kind of, so the air fuel has to go down and up and into the port. It's not the greatest, but it helped them keep a low roof line. Here's an interesting thing about the Oldsmobile V8s is that they had, well, in this generation, they had two different lifter diameters and lifter bank angles. They had 39 degree and 45 degree. This has got the 39 degree and the larger lifters, which is actually the better, more modern sort of combination. But keep a mind on that if you've got an engine of this generation, because you need to get the right camshaft for the right lifter bank angle. Another cool thing about the 425 or 455 and the Turbo 425 is this is the front wheel drive setup that was used in those fiberglass GMC motorhomes. You know, the big blobby ones? 1973 to 1978. I fell in love with those when I was a little kid because of the power of the Hot Wheels. Yeah, they had a Hot Wheels version of that, and it used this setup straight out of the Toronado. Anyway, that's what's going on under here. Holden Brothers put an alternator on it, set the timing, messed with the carburetor a little bit, made it good. Oh, and they straight piped this. When I fire it up, you will hear that it has no muffler at all. It's a little bit blatty. It's just straight out the back. Now we get into what I'm going to do to clean this thing up. I'm going to pressure wash the engine because it's sort of a sponge pit, and then wash it because even though it looks fairly clean on the wrap, there's a whole lot of this sort of, I don't know, dirt residue stuck all over the thing. Let's get going with that. Engine's as clean as it's gonna get. Now I need to wash the thing. It probably looks clean on camera, but it just sort of has a film of stuff. It came back on the trailer that way, so I'm gonna scrub down the vinyl. It'd help if the hose was on. All washed up. Looks pretty good for a red, white, and blue car with a purple interior. I really like the body style on this thing. I learned some stuff as I was washing it. I always say a car's not yours until you wash it because you touch every part of it, and so you learn the car. First of all, I had mentioned that on Holden Brothers, they said that they painted the car for $12,900. This wrap might have cost that. I'm not really up to date on how much wraps cost, but I know they're way more than I think they are, and I think it's an actual good job. I like it. So let's talk about some of the other stuff that I saw. First of all, the 67 is the only Toronado in my opinion. Earlier I said that it was the 66 and 7, and that is acceptable, but here's the difference between those two. In 66, there's a little louver or vent right ahead of the pop-up headlights, and obviously that isn't on the 67. The 66 has straight grille bars, and I prefer the egg crate on the 67, which is mimicked on the taillight. So in my opinion, this is the cooler Toronado. Now let's look at some of the other stuff that I noticed. Look at that rear view mirror design. I love it. I mean, GM was on their game with this thing. By the way, Bill Mitchell, who is the design chief, and his guys, they wanted this car built on the A-body platform, meaning Chevelle or Cutlass sized. And GM made them make it huge. But what would this car be if it was not huge? I think it's great. All right, there is some bubbling in the bottoms of the doors right here on both sides. So we know we've got some rust happening right there. I was able to clean up the gold really well. That's a nice metallic on there. Moving around to the back, these vents right here are genius. I have no idea what they do, if anything, but I just love the style of that. I love the fastback swoop of it. And here is the tail light with that pattern that mimics what's going on in the front end. And this panel on the tail light would have changed depending on the color of the car. This one, of course, burgundy mist. Once again, this Bondo bit right here is just no good. And you can see I'm squishing water out from under it. You peel the vinyl, that's gonna be an ugly spot. That's it, man. Soak it in. If you're anything like me, you have ignored these in your muscle car life, but if you really look at the style of it, this is a cool, cool car. I guess the last thing to do is see if I can go drive it. I've put 0 miles on this thing, on and off the trailer. That's it. Hey, I just had an idea. Duh! Will it do a front wheel drive burnout? Let's find out. All right, let's see if my personal luxury cruiser will spin the tire, which I notice is a little bit flat. That's not gonna help my cause here. Doesn't run good cold at all. Ah! There we go. Let's warm this thing up a little bit. Ooh, parking brake. Do I dare press it? Ooh, it doesn't feel good. Ah! I broke the handle off the parking brake. Just put that back. Runs very much bad. Okay, the parking brake doesn't work. It is not going to do it. Nope, not at all. Sorry, traffic in my way. I'll turn. Doesn't run great. Maybe it's still cold. Maybe I got the ignition wet with the pressure washing. I think the ignition's wet. Let me turn around. Wow. Good power steering and killer turning radius. Didn't expect that. Okay, this is not going well. One of the things is the pop-up headlights come on anytime the engine's running. Obviously that's not right. You don't have to turn the switch on, they just come up. Oh, it's running much better now. It's slow. Okay, hopefully I can make that run again. Nope. That's a dead player. Okay. This is going to be a challenge with traffic. Okay, let's go. There's more traffic coming. Okay, no, traffic. Traffic. Okay. Okay, keep up the momentum, dude. We're gonna go uphill. We're never gonna get this back. Are you pushing? Well, that was a frustrating disaster with the car dying about a block and a half from here and the battery not firing back up and having to push it back here by hand. Fortunately, a couple teenagers stopped and helped me get it shoved in the driveway, which was really good. But now it's a week later. I know you can't tell because I'm wearing the same thing, because I always wear the same thing. And by the way, the firing order gear, you can buy that at my store. The link is in my description. You can get all sorts of 1-843-6572 t-shirts right now. What happened while I was gone for that week is that the guys from Hot Rod Ranch, specifically Cuda Dave, they figured out what was wrong with the carburetor. Apparently, I don't even know what was wrong with it. They just told me it's fixed now. They put a new Edelbrock on it, or a new used Edelbrock, and they said that it runs great. And so I will once again attempt the drive, which will of course begin once again with maybe a front wheel drive burnout. I'm guessing not, but I did add some air to the front tires, so it's a possibility. I'm not gonna put the air cleaner on. Well, am I gonna put the air cleaner on? Yeah, let's put the air cleaner on. It's pretty cool. It's cool. Okay, I'm excited to not have this fail me. I'm gonna put on my purple seat belt. Window. Ooh, it does go. Here's a rule for old cars. Never put the window all the way down when it's a little bit sketch, because you want to be able to pull it up. All right, I'm gonna fire up my unitized power package. Nice. Wow, it runs way better. Those guys fixed it. Okay, front wheel drive burnout. Nope. Maybe it needs to get warmer. This car would be significantly more entertaining if it smoldered the front tires, wouldn't it? Whoa! Okay, this runs way better than it did. Uh-oh. Giving me flashbacks. Wow, this thing's a pillow. It's just great. Woo! Did you see that ride quality? Runs good. Shifts, you know, as you would expect a luxury car to shift. Woo! Nice. I don't know if it's 385 horsepower as advertised, but it's pretty good. I gotta tell you, the seating position in this thing is great. If only it was 1967 again and you were someplace where it was legal to drink a martini on the road, this would be your unit. Does it torque steer? No! How crazy is that? Maybe it's because it has no power. Got a little bit of an exhaust leak that I can hear. I know Holden Brothers was working on that on their show. Oh, it's running way better now that it's warming up. It doesn't die at an idle and it's smoother on acceleration. Yes! Okay, I'm stoked. Heading back to the shop. Let's wrap this up. Okay, what just happened was it dieseled really bad when I shut it off. So much so that I turned the key back on and it fired back up. So I dropped it into gear and shut it off. Obviously, it needs a little bit more carb fiddling. That was funny. All right, let me tell you a few more things about the car, and then we'll talk about how you could buy it. In the end, let's talk about the good and the bad on the Toronado. I'm going to start with the bad because I need to improve my mood and your willingness to buy by closing with all of the good stuff. So here's the bad. I'm super enraged right now that as soon as I pulled into the driveway to try and shut this off and sell you the car, this headlight door stopped working right. So that's going to take a little bit of fiddling to get that to fit perfectly in there again. So that's a bummer. Second thing that's a fairly big annoyance on the car is that there is a hole in the hood right here. That actually happened even before the Holden Brothers had it. They had shown that in their TV show and it was wrapped over, but it is a little bit of a hole. I would probably take something like an Allen head bolt, paint it red, put it in there, and call it a day. Clearly somebody slammed the carburetor stud through the thing. The brakes, not that good. I'd probably give them a little bit of attention. The water pump leaks pretty badly. It does have a little bit of rust bubbling in the areas that I showed you earlier in the episode down at the bottoms of the doors. And of course, the fuel tank isn't hooked up. Wow, I'm not really selling this car right now, am I? That's quite a bit. But you know what? With all of that, this thing would make the perfect fly in, scab some stuff together, and drive it home. Because the good is this is a swanky 58-year-old car. It is in way above average condition for the Toronados that I've seen on the road. And man, it rides so good. It is so comfortable. The interior is so complete. It's got some stuff wrong with it, but it is totally presentable. And honestly, even though it's a vinyl wrap, I dig the whole look because of the heritage of Pikes Peak and all of that. So I think this car would be a riot. But it's also number 49 for me, and so I don't need to own it. You do. And here's how that's going to work. I am going to put the contact information of Gil here at Hot Rod Ranch in my description, and you can call him and arrange a purchase of this fine automobile. And as soon as it is sold, I will take that out of the description, I will mark it sold, I will make a comment, and I will pin it to the top, so when you're watching this video years from now, you won't think it's still for sale. It'll be gone one way or the other. And I am posting this right around March of 2025. Now the question is, how much do we need for this fantastic piece of personal luxury equipment? $5,000. I know you're going to argue about it in the comments and everything. You're going to say, Freiburger, you're insane. You just listed everything that's wrong with it. Or you would realize it's virtually impossible to get a vintage running and driving old American car for that kind of cheap where you can actually drive it home. So that's it. I will see you next time at Freiburger's Used Car Lot.